the church is not the building and the walls, and but we are the church, and individually we are all just a brick in God's hands, and He puts us together. You take one brick, you can't do a whole lot with it. A lot of times you can cause havoc with one brick through the window, brick to the head. Don't get any ideas, Mark. But at best, one brick by itself is a paperweight. And can I just tell you, God has not called you to be a paperweight. He has put us all together because you take one brick you can't do a whole lot with, but you put all these bricks together and you can build a palace. And that is what God's doing. He's building something with each and every one of us, and He put us together for a reason, brick by brick. And what we did is we had, you see the names on here. If God is leading you, hey, I want to be a part of what God's doing here at Farallon Church. I want to be I don't want to just be a spectator. I want to be a participator. We have some bricks over here that have not had their name on it. We got some markers behind them, and you can take it, put your name on it, and put it over here on one of the bricks. And I want to encourage you, if you feel led, don't do it just because of peer pressure. We're not pressuring anybody. We're not going to make you feel bad if you don't do it. But in doing the brick by brick, and this is my third message of the series, and we started talking about a guy named Nehemiah. Now, just to fill you in, if you haven't been here, Nehemiah, he was, well, they kind of throw him in his time in exile, but he really wasn't. He was like post-exile, because what happened is in Israel, in Jerusalem, Babylon came in and they overtook Jerusalem, and they left the place just in shambles. And they took some of the people, not all of them, they left some there, but they took some of the people in as slaves. There are some popular people in the Bible that they took. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They took them in. Now, the Babylon Empire was eventually overthrown by the Persian Empire. And when the Persian Empire came in, there was a king, his name was Cyrus, King Cyrus, and he came in and he decided to allow the Jewish people to go back to Jerusalem if they wanted to. And there was two big waves of people that went back to Jerusalem. But now, he did not tell them they didn't have to go back if they didn't want to. It was by choice. And there are some people they chose to stay there in bondage under the Persian Empire, because it's all they ever knew. Now, there's some of you feel like your life, you feel like forever how many years that you have been in bondage. But can I tell you this? You have not. Jesus has set you free. And the bondage, you may have been in bondage, but it's bondage that you keep yourself in. Some people just choose to stay in bondage. Oh, that's just how it's always been. Oh, that's how my family was. That's how my mom was, my dad was. That's how I was raised. But I want to tell you that God has so much more for you. He has not called you to live that way. He has so much more for you. But some people, so many of us, we just stay in this bondage that we keep ourselves in, just like the people of Israel did, that they chose not to go. Now, Nehemiah probably most likely never met Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because it was probably his grandparents or maybe even his great-grandparents that was around during that time. Nehemiah, he had never even been to Jerusalem. He was born in Babylon. So all he knew was, captivity and bondage. It was not even his choice to stay there. His grandparents, his parents stayed there, and he ended up being there as well. Now, Nehemiah, he had favor with the king. The king, if I can remember his name, no, not King Cyrus. Xerxes, King Xerxes. He had favor. He showed Nehemiah favor, and Nehemiah, now he worked for the king, and he was a cupbearer. Now, you think your job is bad? Nehemiah, he was a cupbearer. It wasn't mean that he just walked around with cups. What cup would you like today, king? No, that's not what he did. What he did is he would drink the king's wine before he would drink it. He wasn't just drinking it saying, that's vintage from the Moses years, king. You'll like that. That's not what he was doing. He was taking a sip of it to check and see if it had poison. The way you knew if he did his job correctly is, he would die, So you think your job's bad. Do we have any cupbearers in the house today? No, none? Well, there's a few in the first service, yeah. So he was a cupbearer. Now, Nehemiah, somebody came to Nehemiah. He had never even been to Jerusalem. All he knew was Babylon and the Persian Empire. Somebody came to Nehemiah and said, hey, Jerusalem is in shambles. What's happened is all the people that were there and the people that have gone back to Jerusalem, they have not been able to rebuild the walls. So all these countries around all these nations around there, they keep coming in and they just demolish Jerusalem over and over again. I mean, it was easy prey. They would come in and some of them would take slaves from the Israelites. Some nations, they would come in and they would just come in and just wreak havoc and steal their belongings. Some nations just did it for fun because it was easy. Nehemiah finds out about this, and his heart breaks. Now, I want to tell you, his heart does not break for broken walls. His heart breaks for broken people. And it breaks. Now, so God gave him a vision to repair the walls. Now, most of us, we get a vision, and we're like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. Well, what are we going to do? I don't know. We're just going to do it. Okay. Nehemiah didn't do that. He cried, he wept, and then the Bible says that he fell on his knees and he prayed. And he prayed that God would give him a plan, and then he prayed that God would give him favor. And you're saying, well, favor with who? Well, favor with God. No, when you have favor with God, you also have favor with man. Because why? Because God's called us to be fishers of man. So many of us, we feel like it's in our minds, we kind of think we're fishers of God. We jump from service to service, church to church, revival to revival, conference to conference, trying to catch God, and we don't ever understand why our lives not fulfilled, why we don't seem to be reaching our purpose. Why? Because we are not called to be catchers of God. We're called to be catchers of men. We don't catch God. God caught us, He found us. So Nehemiah, he prayed that he would have favor, and he waited. 2 weeks ago, I talked about waiting is working and how he waited until the time was right. Then one day, Nehemiah was there with the king. He was the cupbearer, and the king noticed that Nehemiah was sad and said, hey, Nehemiah, why are you sad? Are you sick? Because you drink before me, and I don't want to catch what you got. Are you sick? Nehemiah goes, no, king, I'm not sick. All right, well, why are you sad? And that Nehemiah had the opportunity then at that point to share what's going on. And he said, well, king, it got back to me, the people of Jerusalem, my people, well, the place is in shambles. And they keep coming in and destroying the walls, and they take them as slaves, and my heart's just breaking for them. You know how long Nehemiah waited from the time he got the vision till he shared it with the king? 4 months. He waited 4 months till the time was right. Then the king said, well, what do you need me to do? Now, here's a king, a Persian king, just so you know, he does not believe in the same God that Nehemiah does. The Persian king, and the Persian Empire, they worshipped thousands of gods. They had a god for everything. So here's Nehemiah talking to this Persian king that don't even believe in his God, and he says, well, what do you need me to do? How can I help? That's favor. Nehemiah said, well, he starts telling his plan. He said, I would like for you to allow me to go to Jerusalem and help them repair the walls. And the king said, done, you can go. What else you need? Well, king, you don't pay much for being a cupbearer. I need some money. I need you to pay for it. All right, done. Here's my American Express card. What else you need? Well, king, after I get there, if you're saying yes that quick, you might as well keep asking, right? Well, king, when I get back, we're going to have to rebuild the walls, and there's no lumber, so we're going to need material to build the walls. And the king said, all right, you can use my Home Depot account. There you go. Go for it. It's all yours. Max it out. All right. So what else? Well, king, when they know that I'm in captivity here, if somebody sees me leaving the Persian Empire, they may think I betrayed you, and they may try to kill me. So I need a letter from you saying that I have permission to leave. King says, done. What else? And then Nehemiah goes, well, when I get to Jerusalem, they've never seen me. I've never even been there. I talk different than them. I dress different than them. When I get there, they need to know that I've come, that you have sent me, and that I have permission to come. So I need you to make me governor over Jerusalem. And the king said, done. That's favor. And that's where we pick up. We're going to read in Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 15 and 16, if you have your Bibles. If you don't, that's okay. You can look up here on the Sky Bible. Nehemiah 6, 15 and 16. It says, "So the wall was finished on the 25th day of Elul in 52 days." So spoiler alert, they got the wall built. Verse 16, "And it happened when all our enemies heard of it, and all the nations around us saw these things, that they were very disheartened in their own eyes." How do you know? When God starts blessing you, there are going to be people that get disheartened because they're going to get jealous and they're going to say, well, why is God blessing them? Why is this and that? And people are going to come against you. That's just how it works. And this is here, these nations, they're getting upset because they're rebuilding their walls. They did it in 52 days. We're not going to be able just to come in and take what we want now. So they were disheartened. And then they said this. They said, "For they perceived that this work was done by our God." When God is in it, you don't got to put up a flag. You don't got to put up a banner. Hey, God, help with this. People know. Amen. They see it. God was definitely in that. And my prayer is that when people walk in here to Farallon Church, when people drive by Farallon Church, we don't have to put up a sign and say, hey, God's doing stuff. They're just going to be like, wow, God is there. Yeah. Now, my mom, DeWetta Lloyd, she loved throwing parties. Now, I grew up in church, just so you know, so my idea of a party may be different than yours. My idea of a party is, we'd get that punch with the sherbet ice cream in it, All the church people would come over, we'd have a big thing. And my mom loved throwing parties. She was very outgoing. She was very talkative, very friendly. She was like the life of the party. And it was like at least once a month, she would put on a party, invite everybody from church. There was times where I feel like we had more people in our house than there was at church on Sunday mornings. And my mom, she was great at just organizing things. And what she would do is she would go, okay, we're going to have a party. And Cody, what I need you to do, I know you make good fried chicken, so I need you to make the fried chicken. All right? Miss Linda, listen, I need you to get the punch, all right? I know that you're going to be tempted to spike it a little bit, but no, it's not that kind of party. So, Steve, you know what? I need you to bring the plates, but I don't need you to get the cheap plates. I need you to get thick ones because, when Cody makes his chicken, it's really greasy. It's greasy, but it's good, so we don't want it to drip through, so I need you to get the good plates, okay? Miss Ann, I need you to get the cups, all right? Get the small cup. Don't get the big cup. Don't get the 20-ounce. Get like the 12-ounce because people's going to drink more, and then they're going to be there, so I need you to get the cups. My mom would have my dad at the driveway with a flashlight directing cars. No lie. Because we didn't have a whole lot of place to park, and we'd park people in the backyard. This was like a once a month at least thing. But you know what my mom did for the party? She didn't do anything. She organized everything. She was great at delegating. And then when people got there, my mom was just the life of the party. She just freed herself up so she could talk. And these parties went great. It went so smooth. But my mom knew that for these things to be a success, there had to be collaboration. There had to be a group of people that got together, and she had to share her vision for these parties to pull it off because she knew she could not do it by herself. So I want to talk to you guys this morning on the power of collaboration. And I think it was the Apostle Vanilla Ice that said, all right, stop, collaborate, and listen. Ice is back with a brand new invention. Something's grab a hold of me tightly, flow like a harpoon daily and nightly. Will it ever stop? I don't know. Turn off the lights and I'll glow. But I'm not here to talk about Robbie Van Winkle. I'm here to talk about the power of collaboration. Now, collaboration, by definition, it simply means to work one with another. Now, some of us, we have a hard time working with one another. Now, in our mind, we think we can work one with another, but it has to be like our idea, I'm good at working with other people as long as they're doing what I want them to do, In the Garden of Eden, the first time that God ever said something wasn't good, he made man, and then he looked and said, man, it is not good to be alone. It's not good for man to be alone. A lot of us, we think that the first problem in the garden was sin. It wasn't. It was isolation. He has created us to do life together. He has not created you to do it by yourself. Sometimes in our mind, there starts to be problems, there starts to be different things start piling up, and we feel like, you know what, I'm going to just stay in my house, I'm going to close the door, I'm going to stay here by myself until like all this just settles and goes away. And can I tell you, if that is what's going through your mind, that should be a red flag that it's not God, because God has called you and called me to do life together. He has not called you to do life by yourself. But when the enemy comes in, he starts to tell you these things because he wants to isolate you, put you in the corner, and then the only person that is talking to you is him. And he can just start tearing you down. God has called us to do life together. Before Jesus went to the cross, he went to the Garden of Gethsemane, and his last prayer on earth that is recorded in John chapter 17, and it wasn't for more signs and wonders. It wasn't for more Red Seas to be parted, full of emotion, and as sweat's dripping from him like great drops of blood as Jesus cried out, and he said his prayer, and it was simply to unite the believers. Why? Because he's created us to be united. He's created us to do this together. Scripture says that one will put 1,000 to flight. But then what does it say 2 will do? But 10,000. Now, listen, I am not like this math genius, okay? And my graduation with a GPA of 2.3 will prove that. But I remember when I was in high school and the teacher would come and say, show your work. And I'd be like, I don't know how. And she'd be like, well, you got the answers. Where did you get the answers? I said, I got it from her and got it from him. My friends deserved every bit of that 2.3 GPA I got. Just wasn't something I was like interested in. Now I got to college and stuff, things changed. But to me, like simple math would be like, if one puts 1,000, if one person can reach 1,000 people, 2 people should be like what? 2,000 people, right? No, because the math that goes with collaboration is not addition, but it's multiplication. Maybe I need to remind you that in Matthew chapter 25:20, it says that faith does not maintain, faith multiplies. That means he hasn't called us just to maintain. Well, I don't like how many people's coming. I don't like all these new people. I don't like all these. God has not called us to maintain. What happened to the guy that just maintained the one coin that he had? He hasn't called us to maintain. He's called us faith multiplies. So when Nehemiah, he gets the word, his heart breaks, and so often God's vision for your life will be birthed out of brokenness. What breaks your heart is going to be attached to your passion. Nehemiah is not worried about broken walls. He's worried about broken people, and God's given him the vision to rebuild walls, and much like my mom's vision for those parties, he knew it needed collaboration. Can I tell you, this is a corporate word, but at the same time, this is a word for you individually. Because can I tell you, you know what your marriage needs more of? Collaboration. You know what your family needs more of? Collaboration. You know what group of friends need more of? Collaboration. I want to show you from Nehemiah's life that collaboration requires certain things. And the first thing that collaboration requires is it requires clear conviction. Nehemiah, he is a man with a vision. He starts off with a man with a vision, but then he becomes a man on a mission. And when God gives you a vision, eventually you will have to go on a mission for that vision to take place. Nehemiah, he goes to Jerusalem, and he goes there, and he's needs to rally people up that have been living in just chaos and living in rubble, and he has to go there and inspire them to rebuild the walls. But I want you to notice what happens in Nehemiah 2, verse 11 and 13. It says, Nehemiah says, "So I came to Jerusalem, and I was there 3 days. Then I rose in the night, and a few men with me, and I told no one what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem. Nor was there any animal with me except the one which I rode. And I went out by night through the valley gate and the serpent wall and refuse gate, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and its gates, which were burned with fire. I want you to see what's taking place here. Nehemiah, he gets to Jerusalem, and he don't get there and just say, hey, guys, I'm here. You guys are saved. I'm here to help you out. He don't do that. He gets there, and he waits 3 days. Why? Because he's already learned that waiting works. He gets there for 3 days, and then he wakes up in the middle of the night, and he goes to a couple other guys. He's like, hey, I need, can you show me around the place? I'm not really familiar. I've only been here 3 days. Can you just show me around? And they're like, yeah, sure. And he starts walking around the walls of Jerusalem. Can I tell you that before you talk about it, before you talk it out, you need to walk it out? So many of us, we want to talk about all this stuff, but then when it comes time to walk, it's like, oh, I don't know. I'm not going to talk for you, but I know there's been times I gotten really excited about stuff, you know, and I went and told everybody, hey, we're going to do this. And then I get in the middle of it, and I'm like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Maybe I should have planned this out a little bit better, all right? Hey, you guys good? You good? All right, you got it? Okay. All right, see you later. A lot of times that happens. So when it's a God vision, well, we got to walk it out before we talk it out. And I just want to tell you here at Farallon Church, I can speak for Pastor Mark, and I can speak for the Acock family. We are not here, the Acock and the Lloyd family, we are not here just to be spectators. We're here to be participators. We're in this with you. You know, there's not something, we're not going to ask you to do something that we're not willing to do ourselves. Nehemiah didn't go there to apply for a job as a carpenter. He went there on a mission and with a vision from God. So many times we just want to be a spectator. We want to point out things that need to be done. I feel like Nehemiah, I feel like really any story in the Bible, there's one main character, and that's Jesus. And when we read these stories, we should look and see where we see Jesus. And I believe that Nehemiah represents Jesus. And Jesus, much like Nehemiah, he never asked us to do anything that he's not willing to do himself. I mean, I know he asked us to do some pretty radical stuff, okay? I mean, he says, carry your cross. It's not just poetry. It's a way of life. And I just want to tell you, it's really hard, okay, when you're carrying your cross, to go to a club carrying your cross. Makes it kind of hard to dance, you know? I mean, you can do it, but it's kind of hard. It makes it really hard to cheat on your wife when you're carrying your cross. I mean, you might can hide your ring, but, oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah. Oh, this? No, this is a cross, yeah. We'll just carry it around, yeah. It's kind of hard to do, right? It's hard to go back to the old way of living when you're carrying your cross daily. And yeah, maybe it's radical, but, you know, Jesus asks us to carry the cross. Well, he died on the cross for us. We're not just here to be spectators. We're here to participate. But so often, and we've talked to our leaders, and that we put is don't ever ask your team to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. And I don't normally, I don't talk about, we don't talk about giving and the offering and stuff like that a lot, and I know a lot of people tune you off when you do, but can I just say this, is that you can't, when you give in the offering, I believe 100% that it's about a relationship with Jesus. When you have a relationship with Jesus, you just want to give. I just want to tell you this, and I know you guys are smart, but there's a lot of crazy stuff out there. You cannot buy yourself a blessing from God. There's a lot of people that treat the offering like it's the stock market. You know, you give $10, you'll get $100. I mean, any smart investor would do that. You know, he don't owe us anything else. He saved our souls. You give to give. And well, Jimmy, I saw somebody on TV. He said, if I give $175, Psalm 175 will be the banner of my life. Just stop it. You might probably need to turn them off because they're not even a Psalms 175. But it's not true. He doesn't owe us one more thing. And I hope that you guys get that revelation is that your giving, listen, it won't get you to heaven, but I hope that you get the revelation that maybe through your giving, you'll get the gospel to somebody else, and maybe they'll get to heaven. We're not asking when we do the building fund. It's not, hey, we just want to have this impressive building and these nice chairs. It's no, we want to provide a place and for people to come in. It's for, there's something behind all of it. It's not just so that we can have nice-looking chairs or just so that we can have a nice-looking building, but it's because we want to provide a place because there are dying people, lost people in this community that do not know Jesus, and we are called to reach those people. Why? Because, well, why are we supposed to be participators? Because it's simple. Saved people serve people. It should be a conviction. I'm not just here as one of the leaders in the community, but I'm also a participant. Secondly, collaboration requires compelling communication. Listen, every God vision will ultimately become a shared vision. It's not just for you. In fact, if there is a vision and it's just for you and you're supposed to keep, it's probably not a God vision. Because a God vision requires other people to participate in it. I mean, if it's just for you, what's the point? It's going to require communication. I mean, that's what all healthy relationships require, right? It's communication. It's difficult to, you know why it's so hard and so difficult to stay married? Is because, well, lack of communication. I mean, guys and men and women are different. It says that a woman speaks almost 50,000 words a day. Let that sink in. A guy speaks roughly, on average, 7,000 words a day. I mean, can't listen, that's too many. 50,000, that's what I work. Now, there are some exceptions, I know, for the 7,000 words a day. But usually for guys, like, yeah, cool, right, yep, sure, okay. And the funny thing is, every man in this building understands what I just said. Collaboration so often falls short because we can't figure out how to communicate with each other. Check out our boy Nehemiah, and he waited 3 days, and then he rounds up the Jewish leaders, and he gives them the speech that we find in Nehemiah 2:17 and 18, and he's going to compel them with this communication. And Nehemiah says this, he says, "Then I said to them, you see the distress that we're in now? How Jerusalem lies waste, and its gates are burned with fire? Come and let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach. And I told them of the hand of my God, which has been good upon me, and also of the king's word that he had spoken to me. So they said, let us rise up and build. Then they set their hands to this good work." The first thing that Nehemiah does is he gets there and he points out the problem. Now, some of us, we have a hard time with it when people point out our problems. But he goes in and goes, "Hey, Jerusalem, these walls are tore down, these gates are burnt, there's some fire over there. You might want to put that out." Now, this isn't news to anybody in Jerusalem. There's no indication that they were trying to rebuild the walls before Nehemiah got there. Actually, I would say there's indication that they just were just fine, just complacent, living in rubble. Yeah, this is how my life's always been. My parents lived like this. My grandparents lived like this. Now I guess I'm going to just live like this. You know, it's how I was raised. Don't mind me. That's how I was raised. Well, God's called you to more than how you were raised. God's called you more than living how your parents lived. Well, my parents, they were always in debt. And God's called you to more than that. Well, my parents, they fought with addiction, and I know it's just hereditary. God's called you to more than that. He's called you to more. He gets there and he points out the problem. And see, a lot of times we don't want people pointing out the problems because, well, we're just so used to tolerating it. You know, it's just like, well, I don't want anybody like pointing those things out. And listen, how about this? How about if you had something going on at your house and you had some people over? Say you had me come over. Julie and I came over and made dinner, and we got there and hung out and we talked a little bit. It was time to leave, and I was like, hey, listen, Rocky, I love you, man, but I want to tell you this is kind of stinks in your house. Like, I don't know, maybe the sewer's backed up or something. Maybe there's just this weird smell. And it's not the first time. I wanted to say something last time I was here, but I mean, you asked me to take off my shoes when I enter your house, but truthfully, I feel like I need to put my shoes on, you know what I'm saying? Now, I'm pretty sure every one of us, if that happened, you'd be like, you just came into my house and ate my food. You are never welcome here again. But I guarantee you, when they left, you would find out what that problem is and get rid of it. But a lot of times we get what we tolerate. Now, here's the thing. Some of you are like, man, praise God, Jimmy. I've been wondering what my calling was, and now I know it's pointing out problems. That's it. All right, I got a whole list right here. Let's go. Here's the thing, it's a God vision. It's not, you don't just point out problems, but when you point out the problems, you have a solution. Nehemiah gets there and he points out the problem. Hey, man, these walls are tore up. People just keep coming in here and they keep wreaking havoc. And then he says, but I got a solution. What's your solution, Nehemiah? We're going to repair these walls. Well, how are we going to do that, Nehemiah? I already got a plan. The king of Persia gave me his credit card, and we're going to max it out. And we're going to rebuild these walls. See, when it's a God vision and God starts pointing out the problems, he's also going to point out the solution. Not called just to walk around and point out people's problems or point out the church's problems. But he's called you to be a part of the solution. And he describes the solution and he shares with them the vision. Let's rebuild these walls. And he appeals to their imagination and he shows them they see the vision. That's why it's so important that we share the vision here. That's so important. That's why it's so important that we share what our why is, what's backing up, why we're doing this, what the vision is. And then he reinforces the reason. He starts out, he points out the problem, he gives the solution, and now he reinforces the truth. And he says, but this is the time. How much longer are you going to live in disgrace? Have you forgot that we're God's chosen people? Have you forgot that God's called us to more? He has not called us to live like this. He said, the time is now. Well, how do you know the time is now? Because a couple weeks ago, you just said that waiting is working. I just thought I had more time. I thought I could wait. I'm sure the people of Jerusalem was like, dude, you just got here. You've been here 3 days. I mean, can't we get to it next year? I mean, can we come up with a 5-year plan? But you knew how Nehemiah knew it was time? It's because of favor. Why? Because favor flows, favor never forces. And Nehemiah says, this is how I know now is the time, because God has given me favor. So that he has given me a plan. He's given me favor with the king of Persia. It's on their dime. It's now or never. We're going to do this thing. You know how I know that now is the time for Fairlawn Church? Because of favor. Let me explain. It wasn't too long ago, Jordan came up to me and he said, Pastor Jimmy, it's great that we have the bus and we go and pick up people for church, but it would be really cool if we had something like that could go pick up kids, and we could get the kids here and stuff like that. And I said, you know what, it would be great, Jordan. I'm going to start praying that God provides a 15-passenger van or a van for us. You know what, it was about a month later that I was talking to the pastor of Common Ground Church, and he said, you know what, we got a 15-passenger van that we would donate you guys if y'all want it. You want it? Like, yeah. But let me give you another example. We, as we were remodeling the church, we made the decision to take the pew. We had to take the pews out to put down new carpet, and we didn't want to put the pews back down on the carpet because you'd have to drill holes into the carpet. We didn't want to do that, so we needed chairs, but we didn't have the money for the chairs yet. So I didn't know. I was like thinking, well, you guys can sit on the floor. It's cool. We can bring your sleeping bag or whatever. Miss Ann has a few beanbag chairs she could have brought. But then, I don't know, I was talking to Pastor Riley at Spirit Life Church of God, a church that's not even affiliated with us, and I was telling him that we needed chairs, and he goes, you know what? You need some. I got some chairs that haven't even been sat in. We bought some chairs. We don't have as many people coming right now because of COVID. He took out 100 chairs out of their sanctuary and said, here. Some of them never even sat in. I said, use those. I said, hey, Pastor's only going to be a couple weeks. 4 weeks later, I was like, I probably should get these chairs back. And then out of nowhere, Westside Church said, hey, we got 300 chairs if you want them. You can use those until you guys get your own chairs. We went and got those, brought those over here. It's favor. Now, this is kind of small. This is something that's not as big as those things, but I filled out a little form online for Wawa, and I asked them, hey, what, put in kind of stuff that you need, and they sent it back 2 days later, and they said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you 120 bottles of water at the beginning of every month. You just come pick them up. We'll have them waiting for you. It's favor. How do I know it's time? Because we don't got to force it. Favor flows, and that's what's happening. Favor is flowing. The fourth thing he did, and real quick, and I'm closing, Chantel, you can come on up here. The fourth thing he does is he clarifies the urgency. He says, guys, you don't want to live like this anymore. There's some of you here this morning, and I'm telling you, you're like, well, you know what, I can get my life right later. Great little message, it's cool. Maybe I'll put my name on a brick, whatever. But, maybe I'll do that stuff. I got plenty of time. God does not want you to live the way that you're living right now for some of you. He has called you to so much more. But some of you, you've lived in rubble for so long, and you've lived in chaos for so long, and you think, I don't even know how to function without this. I don't even know how to make it without this. For some of you, in your mind, the enemy has told you, this is just you. You're always going to let people down. You're just a failure. You're just a disappointment. Just deal with it. I'm telling you, it is a lie. This is what he's telling you. When you isolate yourself, he starts telling you all these things. God's called you to so much more. He's put you here. I just tell you, one of the reasons that God's put you here is because he wants you to surround yourself with good people that will lift you up, that will be there for you, that will love on you. And I can tell you, I've been here, 7-8 months, and I have been loved on. My family has been loved on. I can't even leave here, without Ms. Velma giving me a big hug. I just said, I gave her a hug first this morning. I don't know what the enemy's been telling you. Some of you, he's been telling it to you for years. But I'm telling you this. God has called you for so much more. Stop believing the lies. No, I'm just always going to be an addict. No, you're not. I'm just never going to be able to keep a good job. It's not true. Well, I never witnessed a good marriage. My parents, they didn't have a good marriage. My grandparents didn't have a good marriage. My brothers and sisters, they don't have a good marriage. And it's just, how my family is. Just kind of been handed down, it just, stop believing the lies. He has called you to so much more. I know it's getting late. Maybe I went over my time. Maybe I didn't. But I believe that this morning, God wants to repair your marriage. Well, my husband's not even here. My wife's not even here. God wants to repair your marriage. I'm telling you, some of you, God wants to repair that relationship with the child that you haven't spoke to for years. Some of you with a parent that you haven't spoke to for years. Somebody here that you can't wait for church to get over because you've just been craving whatever that is that you're addicted to. You just can't wait. You're like, I just can't wait for church to get over so I can go back to that. He has called you for so much more. Somebody here, and you've been addicted to pornography for years, and you just think it's normal. You know, all guys do it. He's called you for so much more. I hope it's okay if I talk about real things, because we're dealing with real people, right? There's somebody here that you are on the verge of just walking out from your family, from your marriage, just walking out. You just had enough. I just want to tell you, God's called you for so much more. Today's the day to repair those things. Today's the day to heal those hurts. There's somebody here that you have not spoke to a member of this church, somebody that goes to church. You have not spoke to them for years because you're holding on to something. Today's the day to let go. There's so much freedom in letting go. So much freedom in forgiveness. Pastor Josh is going to come up here and close this out here in a minute, but I want to encourage you, if one of those people are you, or if you just need prayer, or you just need someone to talk to, I'll be down here. Pastor Mark will be down here. We have some amazing deacons, amazing leaders here at this church. They will stay and talk with you. Whatever's going on, you do not have to leave holding on to that. You can let it go this morning. Josh.